Welcome to the Sisterhood of Healing podcast, the podcast that wants to help you reach your best and most divine potential. Each week, we dive into topics concerning inner healing, wellness, and spirituality. We discuss strategies and practice from our own personal experiences regarding higher energies, trauma, and connecting to the divine as we take you through our own personal journeys to discover the highest versions of ourselves. In combination with guest speakers, we bring you a comprehensive guide to mental and spiritual wellness and the ability to connect to yourself and the world around you on a deeper level. I'm Nicole, and I'm Christina, and we are two sisters who want to take you along on our spiritual and healing journey. We are each on our own individual healing and spiritual path and bring unique perspectives regarding yoga, chakra healing, meditation, intuition, and trauma healing. Sometimes life is messy, sometimes it's confusing, and sometimes everything falls perfectly into place. Join us as we navigate the path to divine enlightenment together. Hello, sisters, brothers, and non-binary listeners. Welcome to episode 7 of the Sisterhood of Healing podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing mental wellness. And we have a very special guest on today. He's our good friend, and his name is Justin Urciuoli. Thank you so much, Justin, for coming on to the podcast this week.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
We're happy that you're here with us. So our podcast this week is going to air on Wednesday, and we've decided to air it on Wednesday. So if you're listening to it, today's Wednesday, January 26th, as opposed to our normal Thursday, because Wednesday, January 26th is actually Bell Let's Talk Day in Canada. If you are a listener listening from outside of Canada, Bell Let's Talk Day is a day where so Bell is our major phone company in Canada. Telecom company, and Bell is Bell Let's Talk Day promotes mental wellness and mental health across all of Canada. It's a day to bring awareness and to break the stigmas that are associated with mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness. So we thought it would be really important, considering last Monday was actually Blue Monday, like the day where
the most depressing day of the year.
Yep. In January, it gets kind of gloomy sometimes, so it's perfect. We thought it would be a perfect discussion to kind of have at this time of year. And also our podcast is about wellness, spirituality, healing. Like, it's kind of the perfect topic or perfect platform to discuss the topic. So we wanted to bring that to you and invite our friend Justin on, who is very happy to kind of, I guess, volunteer your story, of hope that it would reach other people and who are maybe experiencing the same thing, and help us break the stigma. So thanks, Justin.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So first off, you can introduce yourself, maybe tell us about what you do, and just let us know what your experience with mental wellness has been like.
Well, my name is Justin, and I currently work in television for a company called S.1, which is a very positive environment, which is actually very important for mental wellness. Is surrounding yourself in a very positive environment. Yes TV is a TV station in Burlington. My position is media services coordinator, so I basically do all the ingest and in my position of the shows that go to air. I would say my mental wellness journey started in 2009 when I kind of learned, I was always anxious and suffering from depression. I started seeing a psychologist about anxiety, and my anxiety were around social relationships, like friendships and all that. That really started in elementary school. Early on in elementary school, I was bullied as a kid, and so a lot of my anxieties came from that. I didn't know what anxiety was until my parents talked to me about it, and that's how I kind of that's how my mental wellness journey started, is in 2009 when I saw my psychologist. I've had her for 12 years, and she's really helped me over the last decade or so, dealing with different anxiety triggers, and around different, with family anxiety, and relationship anxiety, sexuality anxiety, and friendship anxiety. So social anxiety, and I was diagnosed with GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder, which is you're anxious about everything in the world, basically.
Relate to that.
You could be anxious about your health, or anxious about what people say, and sometimes with anxiety it could be sometimes the thoughts could be catastrophic and intrusive, and it could turn into like obsessive thinking, and that's why when I started with my therapist, it started off like as every 2 weeks, and then she gave me different different practices to do with in my sessions, which are like 1 hour sessions, and yeah, I would say over the last decade, from where I was, like, I'd say my lowest part in my journey was college. I lost my uncle, my nana, my parents had separated. So that was when I was at my lowest point in my mental wellness journey. But, I've overcome a lot with my mental health, and to where I am now, to when I first started. And yeah, and I think I'm thankful my therapist has been there for me, my family, my friends, and coworkers, and yeah, it really started because I noticed my anxiety was where because I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. I always had the need to belong, to want to feel loved, and all that. That's a lot of where my anxieties came from. But no, it's been I've learned a lot with my therapist, and as I got older, I think stuff like exercise, meditation, self-talk, journaling, yoga, eating healthy, and having a good support system has all really helped. Or a lot of the practices that my therapist has really helped guide and suggested in overcoming anxiety. Anxiety doesn't go away completely, but those are ways you can kind of help lessen it, sort of thing. Yeah, and I would say that's been my mental wellness journey.
Okay, so thanks for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
I have a lot of questions, so like maybe unpack that a little bit. But I wanted to say, first and foremost, I think it's really important that you had your parents as your support system, and like your parents recognize that perhaps you're struggling with anxiety.
Yeah.
And talking to you about what that is. I think that's really important too. And Nicole and I have mentioned how, our anxiety is caused by growing up in an environment where we were loved, but taught to like fear everything,
right?
Which just enhanced our anxiety, perpetuated that anxiety. And I think, even now we've had conversations with our parents and said like, oh, I've got anxiety, and they're like, why? What do you have to be anxious about? What do you have to be upset about?
And I think that's like a generational issue.
Exactly.
Our parents are baby boomers.
Yep.
And like mental illness, mental health, wellness wasn't a thing, and like depression wasn't something that you spoke openly about.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
And like, I feel like at least like our dad's perspective is like, you shouldn't be depressed. You have a job, you have a roof over your head.
Yeah.
Like, you have food in your stomach. So I think there's a big misunderstanding about what exactly causes depression and anxiety.
Yes.
And I feel like if our parents were able to, I'm not going to like put this all on my parents, but if our parents were able to like identify what we were experiencing as children, we would have had an easier time navigating our emotions and identifying them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not waiting until we were adults to be like, oh, okay, I can put my finger on it. I have anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And realizing within the last couple of years that, oh, this like hyper whatever it is that I'm feeling and how I'm functioning all the time, and like I function in like chaos, like that's where I function best. Oh, that's like not healthy.
Yeah.
Well, and the truth is, everyone has anxiety in life.
Mhm.
It's normal. Everyone experiences anxiety, whether it's starting a new job, you get anxious. Or first day of school, you get anxious. But I would say people have it to different degrees and different mildnesses of anxiety. So
and different triggers.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why it's important to talk about mental health, especially in winter. I think one downside why people suffer depression, especially in the winter, is number one is because in the winter you're always inside. It's dark and cold.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of vitamin D.
Lack of vitamin D, that's a big one, and I've learned that from my naturopath that with lack of vitamin D, that's can also be can cause depression, and actually, if you have access to getting a naturopath, that's a good tool, is getting vitamin D shots, because or vitamin D supplements, because that helps as well. So that's another thing that's could be considered a barrier, is that.
And what is, just in case our listeners don't know, what is a naturopath?
A naturopath helps you just figure. They work with you in figuring out how to help your body in a natural, healthy way with natural supplements or natural shots like vitamin D shots, vitamin B12 shots, and they figure out, unlike doctors, they figure out how to help your body naturally, and with diet and your mental health, and rather than always going towards the route of pills and medication, they figure out how to help you in a natural way for your body.
Yeah, more so getting to the root cause of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Opposed to like just slapping on like a prescription medication.
And they give you tools to, like, for me, I have a naturopath as well, and they help you figure. So you tell them what you want. You tell them what you want to work on, and for me, it's been weight loss. So they give you a plan on how to lose weight, and it's through diet and certain foods to eat, certain foods to avoid, portions, all that, and exercise. Getting the right vitamins that you need for the body to help with all that, like metabolism, and they also check, like, they do a lot of blood work, so they check your thyroid levels, and so if naturopaths are really great, and especially when they do blood work, they do more in-depth testing than what doctors do for blood work, for example.
Yeah.
So I'd say having a naturopath, it could be good for your mental health as well.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling too with mental health, having a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, I know it could be expensive, but your health is, I think, and you don't want to take your health for granted. So,
and I think the nice thing about a naturopath is it's a holistic approach, right? Like what you're saying, like it gets to the root of it, and that's not to obviously discredit medication. I mean, medication is obviously important in like regulating like chemical imbalances and whatnot, but it really is so important to get to the root cause of it. Whether, like you said, nutrition or trauma, like whatever it is, it's important to have that whole person, holistic, like grounded approach, like in unison with medical professionals. And
well, and anxiety can be due to chemical imbalance too. I'm on medication as well for anxiety. It's called Cipralex, and I take like 20 milligrams, so one pill a day, and I'd say that helps as well. Medication, So that's the chemical imbalances, I guess, what causes anxiety, but from a scientific point of view.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up diet
Yes.
and that being addressed when you saw your naturopath. And I think it's so important to note that your emotions are held in your gut.
Yes.
And when your gut isn't healthy, your head isn't healthy. Like,
that's correct. Yeah.
You don't have that mental clarity. And like I notice personally when I'm not eating well and like I can tell my gut is off and I feel more anxious and like depressed and stressed over things.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's when I know like, okay, I need to like shape up and like get back to eating more healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the same way. That's some of my anxiety. When I'm anxious, I eat more. Like I'm an emotional eater, or I eat out of boredom. So I always need to stay busy. Whether it's just when I'm busy, I don't think of food, and it's when I do eat out of emotion, I do get more anxious. So it's like a vicious circle.
Yeah, and you're not like wanting to eat the most healthy things, right?
Correct.
Yeah. You just want something that's gonna like satisfy you.
Yes.
Right there.
Satisfy those cravings. Yes.
Yeah.
You know that all too well.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people can relate to that.
Mm-hmm. One of the things you mentioned too, and I've had experience with this personally, or had experience like talk to other friends and whatnot, is like accessing. You talked about psychologists, psychiatrists, support workers, like access those. I feel like, in like the city we work in, mental wellness, mental health is a problem in the sense that there aren't enough supports for it. Like it's underfunded, or perhaps it's not supported enough. Like we, like in Hamilton, we are a big city for like, it's all about the medical field, like hospitals and whatnot. There's a cancer research hospital, like there's a lot of stuff, but I feel like mental wellness is not something that's given as much attention as perhaps like the hospitals, like and like the physical.
No, I agree.
Ailments.
Yeah, like it's like having a psychologist can be expensive. Like I'm lucky and fortunate that I have benefits for it, but if you don't have benefits, it can be very like I see my therapist every 2 or 3 months, but the 1 hour sessions are so expensive. They're like $180, $200 a session.
Yeah, that's expensive.
And when I first started, when I was seeing my therapist, when I was in grade 10 or 11, I was lucky enough that my dad was working at Dofasco, so it went through his benefits. But yeah, it can be expensive, and it's sad that it's not as covered as the rest of our healthcare system. I think it should be covered by the government, so people have more access to seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a social worker or self-love coach or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it should be more. There should be more tools, and the government should be helping people out, with who can afford it.
I think so. I think it would make such a difference within all of our communities, like our local community, our global community, if we one understood the importance of supporting mental health, and then had systems in place that were more accessible. Because I mean, affordability is difficult for people, like you said, if you don't have those benefits, or if you're in the States, if you don't have the health insurance that's going to support it, it makes it really difficult. And then people just keep pushing it aside because it's not a priority. I mean, you got to pay your bills, you got to.
Yeah. And I think it's barriers like that, and barriers like affordability and the stigma of people being scared to admit they struggle with mental health, that causes, unfortunately and sadly, that when people who are suicidal and take their own life, it's because of they're struggling with mental health and mental wellness, and they don't have access to the right support or
have that support system,
or the support system, or they're scared to admit, I'm struggling because of generational, growing up, and they were always, they fear that if they admit they have a problem, that they'd be judged, which is, I think, people need to change that way of thinking.
Yeah. And sometimes it just takes having one person you can talk to.
Yes. Yeah.
As that outlet, or as that support, or whatever it is. Like, I know, like, Nicole and I don't even remember how we started talking about our anxiety, about mental wellness. Like, I don't even remember where it started, but I remember, like, at one point we started talking about it in front of our parents, like just having really open conversations with each other in front of our parents. And that kind of like bridged that gap from like us supporting each other to like, trying to welcome our other support systems into that as well.
Yeah, I think being open about it is being open and honest about things is very important, and can help you in the long term, and I think that's important. And I would say if you're struggling with mental illness, you should seek professional help. It really does help, and it's nothing to be ashamed or scared of, and it's something that it takes a lot of maturity and to ask for the help. So I think it's important that if you're struggling to get to talk to someone, because it could be really a really helpful tool.
And I think too, like, taking that first step is scary, right? Like, you're venturing into unknown territory. You're like admitting that you need help, and so many of us have such a hard time admitting that we need help.
Yeah.
And like, just I'll figure it out. I'll do it on my own. Like, it's fine. I'll just get through this. But you shouldn't have to just get through things. Like,
right. No, it's better instead of when some people rely on, like, if they're struggling with depression, people will drink their problems away, or
self-medicate,
or self-medicate with alcohol or drugs or
food.
I guess some stuff is a little bit healthier self-medicating than alcohol and drugs. But it's self-medicating only fixes the problem in the short term. It doesn't fix it in the long run. You're just kind of you're not fixing,
suppressing.
You're suppressing. Yeah. So that's why it's better to get healthy ways of dealing with your mental health and wellness rather than just the short-term fixes.
So you had mentioned that when you went to see your therapist, they gave you some suggestions of like ways you can help your mental wellness, like things you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
So what kinds of suggestions did they give you?
I would say self-talk is a big one. Learning how to talk to your thoughts and emotions. Journaling is a big one, like journaling your thoughts. Meditation is a big one. Meditation just helps calm your thoughts and gets you in a place where you're not fearing like the future or thinking about the past. You're focused on the present. Other tools like exercise, healthy eating, having good support system with family and friends, and having the right job if you're older, being in the right environment. Yoga is a big one too, and I would say those are the biggest tools on how you can help your anxiety naturally, and medication as well. Naturopath, those are different suggestions I've always been taught, especially the biggest self-talk and journaling is were the biggest two like suggestions, and for for helping anxiety on a day-to-day basis.
I would have to agree with you.
And also, having a good routine every day, like make sure you get the right sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and that's important. Sleep is a big important thing with mental health.
Yes.
I would say those are.
Yeah, I find that like when I'm journaling, it helps me clear my mind and like actually like get my thoughts out, and I feel like it's a way of like communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps me like unscramble what's going on in my head.
Yeah, I'm such a big advocate for journaling, and I never did growing up. Like when I was like 8, I had like little journals, and you like journal. Like today I played at recess, whatever. I remember finding one of those, but I never had a real journal until the last couple of years. And that's the one thing I say to people. I'm like, do you journal? Like you should journal. And the response is usually like, oh, I don't write, or oh, I don't have time for that. So like, what do you?
Well, and a journal doesn't have to be you have a book. You can just journal. You can journal on your notes on your phone. It could be. Yeah, it could be as simple as that. So, I mean, journaling doesn't mean you need to have a pen and paper. So, I mean, technology makes journaling a lot easier these days.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And like that unscrambling part is big. Otherwise, I find, and I didn't realize this until I started journaling, but you find that when people are like, oh, I go for a walk and I think about things. I think about what upsets me, or like whatever activity you participate in that is your coping mechanism kind of thing.
It's your outlet.
Your outlet. Yeah. It's not the same. And, and talking to like my therapist about this and other people, like Nicole and other people who practice these things, they said, no, journaling is actually different because like Nicole said, you're unscrambling your thoughts. Like you're taking the time to take your thoughts out of your head and put them down on paper and like having that conversation with yourself.
Yes.
Instead of constantly just like ruminating on your thoughts.
Well, and actually that's another big helpful tool is being out in nature, going for walks on a hike and all that. Just being in nature can help you be in a calm, can help your mind be calm. And just help you reflect on stuff. Going for a walk and listening to music at the same time, it can help. That can be another helpful tool if you're anxious or struggling with depression. Is being out in nature that could be very helpful.
I find that very helpful for me, especially because like we're a society that spends so much time on our devices. I feel like that makes you feel more anxious and depressed because you're constantly comparing yourself to other people's lives. And like when you get outside and you put your phone down and like you leave it at home, it's just you, and you're able just to connect back to where you came from, right?
I think that's why mental health got worse over the years from when, it's because of technology, like, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and, all that, because people are comparing and competing, which people shouldn't. And people should just be themselves, and people should just be who they are, and not fear being judged or being left out or not being included. And I think that's what contributed to mental health getting worse in our generation.
Yeah. I've actually had conversations like in my profession, as like a high school teacher. I've had conversations with peers and other professionals that I work with. And there's not data that supports this, just experience, but talking about why our students' mental health is becoming a greater concern and why we're seeing more struggles with it. And a lot of teachers who have been in the game longer than me have said like, it's the connection to social media, the devices, like the pressures that come along with that. And so I've seen that. And also, needing to disconnect myself, like just constantly being connected to that. It's even if you don't realize it consciously, subconsciously, it affects you. Yeah. Okay, so disconnecting is really important, and you've mentioned a lot of things that you do to decompress, disconnect, support your own mental wellness. What would you say to people, because I do hear this a lot, what would you say to people who say, oh, I don't have time for that, or I can't do that, or, I need to have my phone here for my job, or whatever it is. Like, what do you say to people who say they are unable to do some of these things for themselves in order to support their own mental wellness?
Well, I'd say focusing on your mental health should be like getting up, brushing your teeth, showering, and
Mental hygiene.
mental health,
Yes.
mental hygiene, because hygiene, is reflective on how you're feeling. So if your hygiene isn't healthy, then your mental health, isn't healthy. So I would say, if you have time to, get up in the morning and shower and brush your teeth, or you have time to go on your phone, or you have time to you have time to text, or time to play video games, or go on social media, or you should make time for your mental health and mental well-being as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you can do is like first thing in the morning. I think a lot of us are we have the habit of like checking our phone, checking our messages, checking social media.
Oh, correct.
Like
Yeah.
that's one thing I've tried not to do is I get up in the morning and I'll either, depending on how I'm feeling, either put on music and I've always done this, even as a young kid, put on music in the morning, or I'll put on a podcast. Like I have a couple podcasts I listen to in the morning.
And those are good other tools that are for mental health, is listening to music, reading a book, watching a positive show or movie, or putting a podcast on. Those are also other good positive tools to help with mental health and mental well-being, and give more clarity on how to help yourself in a healthy way. Also people with pets, dogs and cats, those are pets could be very good for your mental health and mental well-being. Dogs too, they can be a good emotional support system.
So animals are definitely a really good support system.
They are, yes.
My cat will come wake me up every morning. So she's the first thing I see. As soon as I start stirring, she just like moseys her way on up to my shoulder and stares at me and wants pets. But just that connection, I don't know. It's just such a nice thing to have in the morning to connect with your animal like first thing. And animals really are therapeutic.
They really are. So you had mentioned like watching shows that are like happy, or like listening to music. I think it's so important to note that what you're consuming makes such a difference with your mental health too. Like the kind of music you're listening to, or like the movies you're watching. Is there violence? Like what kinds of like themes are you constantly being exposed to? And like how is that like being ingrained in you, right? Like how are you learning to speak?
That's important too. And also it's also the environment for people who work, the environment you work in could be important for your mental health. People always think that money makes you happy, but I know people who make a lot of money and hate their jobs, even though But then there's people who don't make as much money, but they love their jobs because the coworkers are positive, their manager, bosses are positive, and it just the environment with all the way up to upper management is a positive environment. So I think that's important too, is surrounding yourself in a very positive environment, surrounding yourself with positive people. People are always going to have their negative days, which is life. That's life, and that's normal. But you don't want to let negativity consume you every day, because that could be emotionally draining.
I love that you brought up the workplace, because like I'm finally in a position where my colleagues aren't toxic or like negative. I'm not like constantly hearing that all day. But like every other job that I've had, like we've had bad apples that have like completely ruined the culture
Mhm.
in the group, and it always made it hard to go into work every day and constantly listen to that negativity and have that negative energy around me. Like it's so consuming. And I really had to learn how to block out that energy because it was not good for my mental health at all.
Mhm. Yeah, it makes it really difficult when you don't have, like, you're getting up in the morning, you're like doing your best you can in your job, and then to be exposed to, someone that's impacting your mental health.
Yeah, and another thing to add is, always try to be present and don't fear the future. Don't think about the past too much. Always try to be grateful and thankful for what's in front of you.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And surrounding yourself with positive friends and family and cutting people out who are toxic. I've had elementary school, high school, college, after college. I've had friends who were toxic for me. I no longer see them, and that's been very better for my mental health. In college, I had friends who used to take advantage of me, use me because of my nice kindness, and coworkers do that too. A couple coworkers, and I mean that's part of, in even elementary school as well. I've experienced that, like being left out and not being accepted, not belonging in a group, and so I think that's another important aspect of dealing with, of trying to, is boundaries.
Oh, boundaries are so important.
Yeah.
I found that for someone who never had boundaries, learning in the last couple of years to implement them and stand by them has been really difficult, but so effective in supporting my own mental wellness and regulating, being able to better regulate my emotions, because my boundaries aren't constantly being crossed and my emotions aren't constantly being triggered, and boundaries are such a difficult thing to implement.
Yeah.
But so important,
especially when you have anxiety, because I know a lot of people with anxiety are people pleasers, and you just want to be liked, and you're a yes sayer, and you don't want to disappoint, and you have a lack of boundaries, and people would take advantage of you.
And that's, I agree, and that's one thing too I've struggled with growing up too, is pleasing people, always saying yes, and because when you struggle anxiety, you do try to get people to like you, but that's where I mean it's not the person's fault. It's just the thoughts that it comes along with having, especially generalized anxiety disorder or social anxiety, and that's where having a therapist can help you guide through those thoughts.
Yeah, that's so important. I don't know.
I would add too. Don't be afraid to cut out toxic people in life. You're not doing it to be mean. You're doing it for your own mental health and wellness. Life is too short to surround yourself with negativity all the time, even if it's from your own families. Family, just because they're blood doesn't mean they get a pass in how they treat you. So focusing on your mental and well-being, your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, spiritual health, focusing on that for yourself, it's not doing it you're not being selfish, you're doing it for your own health, because once you're healthy in all those ways, and then that reflects
in other areas
of your life.
Yes. Well, it's put on your own life vest, or your own oxygen before
correct.
you help someone else, right? How do you show up for other people in the best way possible? You do what's good for yourself first and serve yourself, and then you can serve others.
But that's true. About the airplanes, right? When they say put on if you can't breathe, they say put on the oxygen mask first before you help others.
Yeah. This things too with setting boundaries and being comfortable with it is trusting yourself, like having that like self-trust and knowing that you are doing what's right for you, and really kind of like stepping up for yourself. And like I said, like it's gonna feel awkward at first, especially if you've been a people pleaser and you always want to make people happy. But I think sometimes when you've been used to making people happy, you forget about making yourself happy. And that really does contribute to a lot of the anxiety because you're not aligned with yourself. You're never going to make everyone happy.
Correct. Yeah.
You're never going to make other people happy. It's not your responsibility to make other people happy. So focus on making yourself happy, and as uncomfortable as setting those boundaries and saying no are going to be at first, especially if it's, you know, friends that you've had for a long time or like family members, it is worth it. And, you know, the people that are like have the most respect for you, they're going to respect those boundaries. And like the people that care for you, they're going to, maybe not right away, but eventually they'll realize like, okay, like this is necessary.
And that's where having self-love is for yourself is important in helping you to get those boundaries and have those healthy boundaries.
Yeah. Standing in like your own truth and in yourself. Yeah.
That's a hard one to learn though. It takes a lot of practice.
Self-trust.
Yeah. Especially like when you've been raised in a family that like you're supposed to like follow the rules and like trust the decisions of your parents. It's so hard to make your own decisions and like be confident in the decisions you've made and like who you are.
And there's a lot of different dynamics that cause doubt in individuals, right? Like a lot of different relationship, family, friend dynamics that like cause those doubts. Do you ever experience gaslighting? like significant? Causes self-doubt. So but know to like step into your own truth and be aligned with who you are, and know that like you're doing the best for you, and always be kind to yourself, always be gentle to yourself,
and always be kind to others because you don't know what battle they're going through.
And always be kind, loving, and caring, empathetic, and thoughtful towards others, and helpful in any way you can. And that's important because everyone has their own struggles in life, and you don't know what someone's battling.
You don't know how they're dealing with it.
How they're dealing with it. And that's why being open with people, with your close friends and family is important. So you know, they can help guide you. And I mean, that's the other problem too, I think, with today's generation is, well, like on Facebook, for example, people are just sharing the good stuff. They're not sharing. They're hiding. You know, their real selves, because you know they're trying to please others, and I think that contributes to the problem with mental health is social media like that. For that reason,
you're comparing like you at your worst day versus someone at their best day, and like that's what they're sharing is their best day. They're not sharing their worst day. Like you have no idea what they're going through, but all you're seeing is like this one great thing that's happening,
right? Because
you're comparing yourself to.
And because social media, you're competing for likes. You know, no one's gonna like if you share something negative,
sad,
or you're sad, or you're depressed, or you're angry, or you're annoyed with something, right? And which is unfortunate because those are normal feelings in life.
I actually do like that, like Facebook updated the like status, you know, for like care or like crying or angry, because it's like if someone's sharing like I just got into a car accident today and you're like liking it, like it feels weird being like, oh, great for you, but like
right
like Instagram hasn't really like caught up with Facebook in that way. Like you're liking what's positive.
It's very true too. I think I want to go back to what you said about understanding that like being kind to everyone because you never know where they're coming from. That's like as an educator, that's one thing that I've always tried to keep in mind. Like you have students coming in from like everyone's got a different home life, everyone's got a different experience. So understanding that you don't know what they're coming in with, to like always lead from that place of compassion. And I think kids are getting a lot more open now. I appreciate when they'll come in and be like, "Miss, I'm just having a bad day. I'm not having it today."
Yep.
And you're like, "Okay, thanks for telling me what's going on. Do you want to talk about it?" Nope. Okay, that's fine. Thanks for letting me know. But in some ways, like some of them are becoming a lot more open, and knowing that like school is a place where they can kind of like open up about that, and even just share their feelings and say like, I'm not having a good day. Not even needing to talk about it, but even just being able to say like, I'm not having a good day today, I think is a big step, and like a big step for a lot of people. Like even if you're not talking about it, just acknowledging those emotions. I know I'm not a morning person, and if I've ever had to overnight with someone and like traveling or whatever and haven't had a good night's sleep, I'll normally wake up and be like, I'm just really grumpy right now. I'm just feeling grumpy.
And I'll say, even connecting with your spiritual self, and like if you believe in God, praying it can help too, with dealing with anxiety.
Yeah, and prayer is a form of meditation, and I think that's one thing that we don't realize. And it was really yoga meditation that we were raised Catholic, Nicole and I, and yoga meditation that allowed me to look at my religious beliefs in a completely different way.
Yeah.
It made me respect them in a completely different way. And I was like, oh, prayer is just meditation, because you have the same prayers you say over and over again. You say them collectively. It's like a group om, like, and again, like that's not to equate spirituality with religion. They can be one and the same. They can be completely different. It depends on your perspective. But yeah, like prayer is beautiful. Meditation is beautiful. They both like serve the same purpose, different purposes. Like, but yeah, it's so important to connect with that as well. And if it's church, if it's any kind of religious practice that really allows you to connect with yourself, connect with others, then that's a beautiful thing, and that's definitely a practice that you should engage with and keep up with.
Yeah, like personally, I like stopped going to church for probably like 10 years and then found my way back there. Still not really feeling like I could identify with the religious practice, but that was me going back to church after learning about yoga and meditation and reflection. And yeah, like sitting in a pew and taking that time to reflect, I'm like, oh, okay. I understand this more, and I understand that it's not like solely a religious prayer. It's a time for reflection.
Right.
And now I enjoy going to mass.
It's going to mass is peaceful, and it gives you time to reflect for that hour of the day, and to connect with God and your spirituality, and that also is important in helping with mental well-being and mental health, and just realizing that everyone's here for a purpose, and life is too short to live, to not be your healthiest self, and to live life the fullest and enjoy every day,
for what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. I know for me, going on this spiritual journey, this healing journey, and comparing myself now to who I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, I'm like, wow, I wish I would have come to this sooner. And it was my experiences really that brought me here. But I wish I would have come to this sooner, because I'm sad that I was living and feeling like this for so long. And to have that realization, to have the outlets that I do now, to have the support systems and like the people in my life that I do now, makes me so grateful. But and I like so much. And that's partially why, and I've talked to Nicole about this, partially why I feel so strongly about doing this podcast and reaching out to other people. And even if we just help one more person, is because like realizing how important all these things are and how life-changing they are, and how we don't have to be like prisoners to our own struggles, which is kind of, I mean, having like looking back at my own struggles with anxiety without realizing I had anxiety, I'm like, wow, I was really a prisoner to it, because it was like this, I was constantly just in my head, constantly like worrying about the future, constantly worrying about like things that I had said in the past, like situations
that you have no control over.
That you have no control over. And you're literally a prisoner to the things you have no control over. So realizing that kind of like this separating yourself from needing to have that control and practicing all these other things, it's just made such a difference. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, and you know, wanting to like spread the good news and like help other people, because it's made such an impact for my life. And I just want to like run through the streets and be like, hey, journal, do this, do that. It helps.
I agree. As a listener of the podcast, I love your podcast. It's a very positive thing to listen to. And my mom is the same way. She loves listening to these type of podcasts, and she's also a big Oprah fan. So you know, she used to love watching Super Soul Sunday every Sunday morning. So my mom actually has always been a big support as well. She's always implemented like surrounding yourself with positive people and listening to positive things like podcasts and talk shows like Oprah and all that.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So just before we wrap up here, is there any final advice that you'd want to give to our listeners who are perhaps struggling with their mental health and mental wellness?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to reach out to family or friends if you're struggling, and to seek professional help. And I think it's important to do that. Nothing to be judged or ashamed or be embarrassed about. It's you're doing it for yourself. So yeah, nothing to be scared of or fear, or you shouldn't care what other people think about you just because you're seeing someone for your mental well-being. It's not something you need to. It's not something you should be ashamed or fear of. Because just remember, everyone goes through struggles, and if you're seeking help for that, I think it just shows.
It shows strength.
It shows strength. Yes.
Yeah. When you don't think you have it.
Strength and courage, and it shows you care about yourself.
And asking for help is not weakness.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's not weakness, and I think we need to. Our society tells us that it is. And we need to reprogram our thinking. Like it takes a lot of strength to ask for help.
Yeah.
It really, really does. And like use your support systems. Like you said, use those people who are there to help you, and surround yourself with positive people and build yourself a hype squad. Even if it's one person. Or even if it's, maybe if you don't have those people around you, like, and you are, I know we said disconnect from social media, but maybe find that one person or that one page on social media that's always posting, positive inspirational affirmations every day.
And for me, like, I've grown up in a house where, I always like to tell friends and family, I love you, sort of thing. And I think it's always important to tell people how you feel about them and say how much you care about them, because life is too short, and you could be healthy and the next day you can get into a car accident or you can get hit by a car or you can have a heart attack suddenly. So you never know. That's why you shouldn't take life for granted, and you should just tell people how you feel and how much you love them, how you care about them. And I've always been raised like that in an Italian family, always welcoming people. And I think that's also important as well.
And I think that's so important for the other people too, because I think sometimes we just assume people know how we feel about them.
Yeah.
And I think it makes such a difference when you say, thank you for doing that. I appreciate you. I love you.
Yeah.
And for someone else to hear that, like, that can mean a world of difference.
Correct. Yes.
To their day.
Yeah.
So,
definitely. So thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story, your experiences with us. So if listeners would like to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, J Urciuoli, Urciuoli, 21 is my Instagram. For any friendly advice. I always love to help people. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for offering that.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been very enjoyable. I'd love to come on again and talk other topics with you guys.
Yeah, we would love to have you back on. It's been a great conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll continue long past this.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thanks for being part of our hype squad, Justin.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, listeners.
That's it for our show today. Thanks for joining. Remember, you can always reach out to us on our socials, on Instagram at sisterhood_of_healing, or on TikTok at Sisterhood of Healing. We love to hear from you, so please reach out to us at any time. Thank you for journeying with us today. We'll see you next time.